We now have our next submitter, ManaWāhine. Slowly appearing. Welcome, Ryan. I've got you. Michelle, got you. Are you the two? Yeah, the two key ones. Righto, you can unmute yourselves and away you go.
Te ākina, te Mauri o te wahine, te ākina, te tapu o te whare tangata. Te ākina, te Mauri o ngā tamariki me ngā mokopuna. Tihei Mauri Ora. Ko Dailandi aho. I have previously presented before the select committee representing Women's Liberation Aotearoa. I am here today along with my fellow co-founder of ManaWāhineKōrero, Michelle Eruero. We stand here in strong opposition to SOP 59. ManaWāhineKōrero is a sister group to Women's Liberation Aotearoa. We are concerned with the onslaught of bills being pushed through without fair, unbiased, factual, grassroots consultation. The ill will surrounding this bill is true to this fact. I'd like to remind the Crown that we are partners. ManaWāhineKōrero does not speak for all Māori. No one does. We are not a homogenous group. The Crown has heard from many submitters to date on this bill. Doctors, lawyers, writers, mums, dads, lesbians, men, women, church groups, ex-MPs, youth, trans individuals, lesbian groups, women's groups, and even Crown law. What will it take for the Crown to Taringa whakarongo? The New Zealand Australian Psychiatric Association has just published a watchful waiting document. Finland, UK, Wales, Italy, Germany have all said no to self-sex ID. And in the last week, two of the world's most renowned sex reassignment surgeons, which happen to both be MTF, have spoken out and voiced their concerns of the irresponsible treatment of minors. Tavistock is off to the Supreme Court because, as you know, this decision has not been reversed. Rather, it has put clinicians on notice for the very real possibility of future lawsuits. In the words of Kira Bell, it is a fantasy and deeply concerning that any doctor could believe a 10-year-old could consent to the loss of their fertility. In its current form, this bill removes all safeguarding for wahine and tamariki. This bill is already violating women's sex-based rights. The problem of men wanting to access women's spaces is not new. In fact, it's as old as time. I'm referring to the urinary leash. And as an anecdote, there are children reportedly, young menstruating girls who are losing 12 weeks of school a year because they do not want to go to school while they have their period and share that bathroom with their male peers. Porn and male pattern violence is a burgeoning problem thanks to BDSM, AGP, sissy porn, choking. And bearing in mind New Zealand had to put laws in against choking. These are all readily available at New Zealand is not immune. 4 women have been killed in 2 weeks over here, just recently. Research shows that males do not lose their male pattern violence post-transition. And why should my moko and I have to share a sex-segregated space, you know, the ones that are enshrined in law, with these types of people? How can I tell if they are predators or deviants? Their altered birth certificate won't let me know. Or do I have to wait to be assaulted first? How many assaults before the Crown listens? As unpleasant as this is to hear, men are the problem, not women. This issue will not go away because people want to ignore it. How are we going to get anything sorted for the betterment of all involved when women are vilified, ignored, shut down, mocked, and accused of bigotry and hatred for trying to verse our very real concerns? The passing of SOP 59 will mean all New Zealand birth certificates will no longer be considered conclusive evidence of a person's biological sex as observed and recorded at birth. How does this affect the many New Zealanders living overseas? The kupu wahine is not up for redefinition. What is the rationale for removing the sex-out birth marker? This bill forces women to ignore all the red flags and puts us into vulnerable positions because we can't talk openly or honestly. Humans can't change sex. And quoting American Scientific, it's akin to telling me to use Wikipedia, obviously shows the offshore interest in this bill. Does this bill mean that I can no longer call myself a woman without the ridiculous prefix of cis? And how did we get to here? How did we get to here when women can no longer trust or rely on the Crown to protect us women as an individual sex class in our own right? I will now hand over to my co-presenter, Michelle Iruero.
Thank you, Di. Tēnā koutou katoa, tēnei te mihi o te komiti o tēnei kaupapa. Ko Michelle Uriaro toku ingoa. And it is our opinion that SOP 59 is in breach of he whakaputanga and te tiriti o Waitangi as stated in our written submission. He wahine, he whenua, kangaro, te tangata e. Without women or land, mankind is no more. In Tihei Mauri, there is a synergy between woman and land, and that without one or the other, or both, the people will not survive. This understanding has been te ao since the beginning. When Dame Whina Cooper threatened to lift her skirts to the men that were not listening to her speak, she did so to remind them where they came from. She understood only wahine can bring forth life. For the first time since inception, the tribunal are finally hearing kaupapa grievance claims from ManaWāhine. Yet, here are New Zealand's public service policymakers proposing to erase the fundamental meaning, the biological reality of wahine, for the sake of men who wish to change sex on their birth certificates as often as they want during their lifetime without any restrictions or safeguarding. In fact, they do not have to change a thing about their appearance, whilst at the same time, they can hide their criminal past if they have one. In order to yield to this demand, you are proposing to bring into question the validity of all New Zealand birth certificates by creating a legal fiction. The plot twist, of course, being that by virtue of the proposed Conversion Practices Prohibition Bill, tamariki and mokopuna will be forced to medically and or surgically transition if they are gender questioning, effectively ending those bloodlines. So the ideology informing both these bills tells us that gender identity is fluid and malleable according to this SOP 59, and it is also fixed and immutable according to the Conversion Practices Prohibition Bill. The glaring contradiction could not be more ostentatious. We are continually told that the SOP 59 is for trans rights, yet we are never told what rights they do not already possess. Professor Rosa Friedman has informed you that everyone is born with human rights protections, but instead of activists celebrating that they've won the human rights war they've been waging, oh no, they sent Professor Friedman threats of rape, death and violence. That is the standard of behaviour that everyone has come to expect from these trans activists. Oh, where? turfisAslur.com, J.K. Rowling, Maya Forstater, Holly Lawford-Smith, Beth Johnson, our own wahine and kuia, the list goes on. If you are not taking serious note of the aggressive, threatening behaviour from these trans activists cheering for this bill, then we can only assert insufficient due diligence. We believe that as legislators, it is your job to ensure the safety of all New Zealanders when drafting up these laws. In our opinion, you have failed in your duty to fully consult all hapu on this proposed legislation, which we believe is intentional, our own kaumātua did not even hear of this proposed change until we brought it to their attention. So the social contagion, this insidious push being peddled on social media, actually all media, to make out that gender identity is innocuous and our tikanga and our Māoritanga aligns to this ideology, he meho. We believe this is just another act of colonisation, only this time we are not napping. To the foreign ideology that has formed and shaped the SOP 59, ManaWāhineKōrero, say Kāore, Kāore, Kāore. Tihei Mauri Ora.
Thank you, Michelle. Deborah, you have a quick question.
Yes, it's a question I've asked of other groups as well. So thank you for your submission, and for your thanks, Di, for acknowledging that you were here the other day as well. That's great. A lot of the concern you have is around male on female violence, and your concern that this bill would enable it for some men to falsely identify as female and perpetrate violence that way. Do you have the same concern about women who trans men?
Trans men, women.
Yeah, people who have initially were women and have transitioned to being male. And
this is a really good example of why you are not listening to us, Deborah. You know, why is Ian not scared of women, right? Trans men are women. This is what we are saying to you. And if you'd bothered to consult Hapu, you would know this. You wouldn't have to ask us this question, this inane question, again and again and again. Why are you not listening to the answers?
Tika.
Thank you. Thank you both for your submission. And you went to a lot of trouble to give it to us. So thank you both. And we'll make our way on. Our next